The massive alien fleet appeared in space, like a dark storm cloud blocking out the stars. Commander Thex stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small blue planet through the viewing window. He smiled with sharp teeth, already, imagining another easy victory for the Galactic Empire. Behind him, 1,000 warships stretched across space like a metal wall of death. Each ship was the size of a small city, armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. The Empire had conquered dozens of worlds with this same fleet, and today would be no different. "Sir, we're receiving the final scout reports about the humans," said his second-in-command, holding a glowing data pad. The information made Thex laugh out loud. These Earth creatures were still using chemical rockets that barely left their atmosphere. Their fastest ships moved slower than the Empire's cargo vessels. They communicated through primitive radio waves that took minutes to cross their own solar system. Most amusing of all, they had no energy shields protecting their planet, no plasma cannons, and no quantum technology whatsoever. "They're like children playing with fire sticks while we carry lightning," Thex said to his crew. Several officers chuckled at the comparison. This would be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. The humans had no idea what was coming. Their telescopes were so weak they probably couldn't even see the invasion fleet yet. By the time they realized what was happening, it would already be over. The Empire would demand surrender. The humans would panic and submit, and another world would join the growing collection of conquered planets. Thex had done this dance many times before. First came the shock and fear when primitive species saw the Imperial fleet. Then came desperate attempts to communicate or negotiate. Finally came acceptance and submission when they realized resistance was impossible. Some species tried to fight, but it never lasted more than a few hours. "Begin standard invasion protocol," Thex commanded. "Move the fleet into attack formation, around their planet. Prepare the surrender ultimatum. Have our translation computers ready to decode whatever primitive language they use." The 1,000 ships began moving toward Earth like a slow avalanche of metal and death. Each vessel hummed with power, their weapons charging up for the inevitable demonstration of force that would break human resistance before it could even begin. What Commander Thex didn't know was that human telescopes had been watching his fleet for weeks. Deep space monitoring stations had tracked every ship as it approached the solar system. Military commanders across Earth were already at their posts, waiting patiently for this exact moment. The Imperial fleet continued its approach, confident and unstoppable, completely unaware that they weren't the hunters in this situation. They were flying straight into the most carefully prepared trap in galactic history, set by a species that had been waiting 50 years for someone exactly like them to arrive. Captain Jin Ho sat in the underground command center beneath Seoul, his fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed the alien fleet positioning itself around Earth. The room buzzed with quiet activity as dozens of technicians monitored screens showing enemy ship movements, weapon signatures, and communication channels. "Sir, they're hailing us," reported Lieutenant Park from the communication station. "Standard Imperial surrender demand. They want us to submit within 1 hour or face total destruction." Jin Ho nodded calmly. This was exactly what Earth's strategists had predicted would happen. For 50 years, humanity had studied every Imperial conquest, learning their patterns, their arrogance, and their weaknesses. The aliens always followed the same playbook. "Send our response," Jin Ho ordered. The message that went out to the Imperial fleet was devastatingly simple. "Leave now or face consequences." Only 8 words, transmitted in perfect galactic standard language that should have been impossible for primitive humans to know. On the Imperial flagship, Commander Thex nearly fell over laughing when he heard the translation. His bridge crew joined in, their alien voices creating a chorus of amusement that echoed through the ship's corridors. "Did they just threaten us?" Thex gasped between laughs. "A species that can barely leave their own planet is giving us an ultimatum." He wiped tears from his eyes. "These humans have no idea who they're dealing with. We've destroyed civilizations 1,000 times more advanced than them." "Should we respond, sir?" asked his communications officer. "No need for words," Thex replied, his mood shifting to cold efficiency. "Actions speak louder. Target one of their Satellites with our smallest destroyer, something small and useless. Show them what real power looks like. The destroyer moved into position and locked onto what appeared to be an ancient communications satellite drifting uselessly in Earth's orbit. The kind of primitive technology these humans would use for their pathetic attempts at space exploration. Fire, Thex commanded. A brilliant green energy beam lanced out from the destroyer, carrying enough power to vaporize a small mountain. The beam struck the satellite dead center, and then something impossible happened. The energy simply disappeared, not reflected, not absorbed in any normal way, but completely and utterly vanished, as if it had never existed. The satellite sat there, unchanged, but now it was glowing with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "What just happened?" Thex demanded, his amusement turning to confusion. Before anyone could answer, warning alarms began screaming across every ship in the Imperial fleet. Sensors were picking up thousands of new contacts throughout Earth's orbital space. Objects that had been invisible moments before were now lighting up like stars, each one pulsing with that same blue energy. Captain Jin Ho watched his displays as humanity's true defense network revealed itself for the first time in 50 years. Weapons platforms disguised as space junk, hidden bases that looked like asteroids, and satellites that appeared ancient but contained technology beyond Imperial comprehension. "All stations report ready," announced Lieutenant Park. Her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. Jin Ho took a deep breath. The waiting was over. Dr. So Min stood in the observation deck of Lunar Base, watching Earth through the massive transparent dome above her head. The blue planet looked peaceful and innocent, exactly as humanity had intended it to appear for the past 50 years. But now, as alien ships surrounded their world, the greatest deception in human history was finally coming to an end. "Mom, all deep cover operations are reporting successful completion," said her assistant, Lieutenant Wu Jin, reading from his tablet. "The aliens took the bait completely. They believe we're still using chemical rockets and radio waves." So Min smiled, remembering the early days when her team had first detected the Galactic Empire's expansion across the galaxy. It was 2025, when Earth's new quantum telescopes picked up the destruction of the Kepler system 400 light-years away. At first, nobody believed the readings. An entire solar system wiped clean of life in just 6 hours. But the evidence was undeniable. Something was out there, moving from star to star, conquering everything in its path, and it was heading toward Earth. "Show me the timeline again," So Min requested. The wall display lit up with a galactic map, showing the Empire's movement over 5 decades. Red dots marked conquered worlds, creating a slow but steady path toward the outer edge of the Milky Way, toward humanity's home system. "They've been incredibly predictable," Wu Jin noted. "Same pattern every time. Scout the system, demand surrender, destroy any resistance, move on to the next target. They never expect real opposition because they've never encountered it." So Min nodded. That predictability had been humanity's greatest advantage. While the Empire conquered world after world, Earth's scientists had been busy, not building bigger rockets or better radio telescopes, but developing technology so advanced it seemed like magic. The deception had required incredible coordination. Every satellite launched into space was deliberately primitive on the outside, but contained quantum processors inside. Every radio transmission sent into space was carefully calculated to sound like the communications of a young, naive species just beginning to explore beyond their planet. Meanwhile, in secret bases hidden on the Moon, Mars, and throughout the asteroid belt, humanity had been building something extraordinary: gravity manipulation technology that could crush steel like paper, nanite fabricators that could build or destroy at the molecular level, temporal distortion fields that could slow down or speed up time itself. The hardest part was keeping everyone quiet, So Min reflected. 50 years of the biggest secret in human history, millions of people working on projects they couldn't tell their own families about. "The sacrifice was worth it," Wu Jin replied. "Look at them now, 1,000 ships thinking they're about to conquer a helpless world. They have no idea they've just walked into the most sophisticated trap ever created." So Min watched as the alien fleet moved into attack formation around Earth. Each ship was massive and powerful, representing technology that would have terrified humanity half a century ago. But now they looked almost quaint compared to what Earth had hidden in the shadows. "Begin final phase authorization," she commanded. "It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do when we put our minds to it." The revelation was about to become a reckoning. Commander Thex had seen enough of humanity's strange tricks. The glowing satellite and mysterious energy readings meant nothing to him. These primitive creatures were probably just using some kind of basic shield technology they'd stolen from another species. Nothing the Imperial fleet couldn't handle with raw firepower. "All ships, attack formation," he barked into his communicator. "Target their major cities first. Show them what happens when they refuse to surrender quietly." 1,000 warships moved forward like a wall of death, their weapons charging with deadly light. Each vessel was armed with planet-cracking cannons that had reduced entire civilizations to ash. The humans below had no idea what kind of destruction was about to rain down on their little blue world. But as the Imperial fleet crossed an invisible line in space, something extraordinary happened. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that didn't exist on any human map, Technician Min Su watched his screens light up with contact alerts. "Sir, they've crossed the perimeter. All targets are locked and loaded." "Authorization confirmed," came the voice of Admiral Dae-hyun through the secure channel. "Light them up." What the aliens had dismissed as floating space junk suddenly came alive. Chunks of metal that looked like broken satellites and asteroid fragments began unfolding like deadly flowers. Hidden panels slid away to reveal weapons that hummed with impossible power. The first gravity pulse struck the Imperial flagship's escort cruiser without warning. The massive ship, over 2 kilometers long and armored with the strongest metals in the galaxy, simply crumpled. Like an invisible giant hand had grabbed it and squeezed until it became a perfect metal sphere the size of a basketball. Inside the cruiser, 3,000 Imperial soldiers died instantly, their bodies compressed along with their ship before they could even understand what was happening. One moment they were preparing to rain destruction on Earth. The next moment, they simply ceased to exist. "What was that?" Thex screamed, watching his escort vessel transform into a shiny ball floating in space. "Where did that attack come from?" Before anyone could answer, 2 more gravity pulses struck different parts of his fleet. Another cruiser collapsed into itself with a sound like thunder. A destroyer folded like origami, its proud hull becoming a compressed cube of twisted metal and technology. The Imperial bridge erupted in chaos. Officers shouted conflicting orders, while alarms screamed warnings about attacks coming from directions. That should have been empty space. Their advanced sensors couldn't even detect where the weapons fire was originating from. "Return fire," Thex ordered desperately. "Target anything that looks suspicious." The Imperial fleet unleashed a barrage of energy beams toward Earth's orbital defense platforms. Hundreds of brilliant green bolts lanced through space, each one carrying enough power to level a mountain range, but the beams simply vanished upon contact with their targets, absorbed by shield technology that made Imperial defenses look like paper umbrellas in a hurricane. The human platforms didn't even pause in their methodical destruction of the invasion force. Min Su watched 3 more enemy ships collapse into metal spheres on his display. "Sir, gravity cannon efficiency at 98%. Enemy shields are completely ineffective against our weapons." In less than 60 seconds, the most powerful military force in galactic history had lost 6 major warships to technology they couldn't understand, detect, or defend against. The real fight was just beginning. The Imperial fleet tried to regroup after losing 6 ships to the mysterious gravity weapons, but Earth wasn't finished showing what 50 years of secret preparation could accomplish. In hidden command centers across the planet, human operators prepared to unleash technologies that would rewrite the aliens' understanding of what was possible. "Deploy the nanite swarms," ordered Colonel Haywon from her bunker deep beneath the Sahara Desert. Her fingers moved across holographic controls that would have looked like magic to the aliens above. "Target the lead battleships first." What looked like glittering dust clouds began emerging from concealed platforms scattered throughout Earth's orbital space. To Imperial sensors, these clouds barely registered as anything worth noticing, just tiny particles floating harmlessly through the vacuum. But each speck of that dust was actually a microscopic robot, smaller than a virus but infinitely more deadly. Billions of nanites moved in perfect coordination, guided by quantum computers that could process information faster than the aliens could think. The first nanite cloud reached an Imperial battleship and began its work. The proud vessel, which had survived battles across dozens of star systems, started dissolving from the outside in. Its hull plating simply fell apart at the atomic level, breaking down into component elements that drifted away like metallic snow. "Hull breach on deck 7, screamed an Imperial officer, watching his ship disintegrate around him. "No hull breach everywhere. The entire outer shell is disappearing." The crew tried to seal emergency bulkheads, but the nanites were already inside, taking apart life support systems, computers, and anything else they encountered. Within minutes, the massive battleship became nothing more than an expanding cloud of scattered atoms, its 3,000 crew members reduced to their basics, chemical components. While the nanites worked on the larger ships, Earth's quantum missile batteries prepared their own surprise. These weren't ordinary weapons that could be blocked by shields or armor. They existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing them to phase through any known defense as if it wasn't even there. Technician Young-Ho watched from Lunar Base as the first quantum missiles launched from hidden silos on Mars. The weapons moved through space like ghosts, invisible to Imperial sensors until the moment of impact. "Direct hits on targets 7 through 15, he reported calmly. "Quantum. Warheads are penetrating shield matrices without resistance." The missiles passed through the aliens' energy barriers like stepping through a doorway, then exploded inside the ship's reactor cores. 9 Imperial cruisers erupted in brilliant flowers of light as their power systems overloaded and consumed them from within. But perhaps the most terrifying weapon in Earth's arsenal was one that attacked time itself. Dr. Kyung-suk had spent 20 years perfecting temporal distortion technology, and now her life's work was about to trap an entire alien squadron in a nightmare they couldn't escape. The time field activated around 50 Imperial fighters, creating a bubble where seconds stretched into hours. Inside the distortion, the alien pilots found themselves moving in slow motion, while their thoughts raced at normal speed. They could see their comrades outside the field moving at impossible speeds, but they couldn't communicate or escape. Some of the trapped ships tried to fire their weapons, but the energy beams moved so slowly they seemed frozen in space. Others attempted to flee, but their engines pushed them forward at a crawling pace that would take decades to cover a few kilometers. 5 minutes after the battle began, Commander Thex stared in horror at his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist, wielded by a species he'd thought was primitive. The humans weren't just defending themselves, they were demonstrating superiority. Commander Thex's hands shook as he watched half his mighty fleet disappear from his tactical display. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were being destroyed by weapons he couldn't understand, wielded by creatures he'd thought were barely more advanced than animals. "All ships, immediate retreat," he screamed into his communicator. "Emergency, jump to hyperspace. Get us out of here now." The surviving Imperial vessels turned away from Earth in panic, their engines roaring to life as they desperately tried to escape the nightmare they'd stumbled into. Captains who had never retreated from any battle were now fleeing in terror, abandoning their formations and military discipline in favor of pure survival instinct. But as the alien ships accelerated toward the edge of the solar system, something new appeared on their sensors. Objects were emerging from what they'd thought were ordinary asteroids, moving at speeds that defied everything the Empire knew about physics. Pilot Jung Min sat in the cockpit of his interceptor, watching the fleeing aliens through his targeting display. His ship looked nothing like the primitive rockets the Empire had been expecting. Sleek and angular, it was built around a drive system that bent space-time itself, allowing it to move faster than light without entering hyperspace. "Hunter Squadron, this is command," came the voice through his headset. "You are cleared to engage. Show them what real speed looks like." Jungmin smiled and pushed his throttle forward. The interceptor shot through space like a bolt of lightning, crossing distances in seconds that should have taken hours. Around him, dozens more human ships emerged from hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt, each one moving with impossible grace and speed. The Imperial ships were fast by galactic standards, but compared to humanity's interceptors, they might as well have been standing still. Zhang Min's ship caught up to a fleeing destroyer in moments, dancing around it like a hawk playing with a mouse. "Target locked," he announced, almost casually. His weapons weren't the crude energy beams the Empire used, but focused streams of exotic matter that could cut through any known armor like tissue paper. The destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash, its hull splitting apart as if it were made of cardboard. Zhang Min was already moving toward his next target before the debris had time to scatter. Across the battle zone, similar scenes played out as human hunters systematically tracked down every fleeing Imperial vessel. The aliens' formations had completely collapsed. Captains were abandoning their slower ships to save themselves. Some were even ejecting in escape pods, hoping the humans might show mercy to individual survivors. "Sir, we're receiving multiple surrender signals," reported Lieutenant Minju from the command center beneath Seoul. 17 ships are requesting terms of capitulation. Captain Dongwu studied the tactical display, watching as his interceptors continued their methodical hunt. "Negative on surrender terms. Let them run. We want survivors to carry our message back to their empire." The truth was, Earth's hunters weren't trying to destroy every alien ship. They were demonstrating superiority, showing the Empire exactly how outmatched they truly were. Every fleeing vessel that escaped would carry word of humanity's power. Back to Imperial space. Commander Thex's flagship managed to reach the hyperspace jump point, its engines screaming as they prepared to tear open a hole in space-time. But even as his ship began to disappear into the swirling vortex, he could see human interceptors pacing him, easily keeping up with his escape attempt. They weren't pursuing because they couldn't catch him. They were letting him go because they wanted him to survive and tell his story. Commander Thex's flagship limped through space like a wounded animal, its hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere from dozens of puncture wounds. Half his crew was dead, his weapon systems were offline, and his once mighty dreadnought was barely holding together. But somehow, impossibly, he was still alive when so many others weren't. The massive ship's engines stuttered and sparked as they pushed toward the hyperspace jump point at the edge of Earth's solar system. Every few seconds, another system would fail with a shower of sparks, reminding Thex just how close he'd come to joining the wreckage floating around Earth's orbit in Fu. The deep command bunker beneath Seoul, Engineer Hyunwoo tracked the fleeing dreadnought on his displays. His fingers hovered over controls that could have ended the alien ship's escape in seconds. One command would deploy interceptors fast enough to catch the damaged vessel. Another would activate orbital weapons that could destroy it from across the solar system, but those orders weren't coming. "Sir, the flagship is approaching jump coordinates," reported his assistant, Lieutenant Bo-Ra. "Should we intercept?" "Negative," came Admiral Chang Min's voice through the secure channel. "Let him go. One survivor telling the truth is worth more than 1,000 dead aliens who can't warn their empire." Hyunwoo understood the strategy, but part of him wanted to finish what they'd started. This Commander Thex had come to Earth planning genocide, ready to wipe out billions of innocent people just to add another conquered world to his empire's collection. Letting him escape felt like showing mercy to a mass murderer, but Earth's leaders had been planning this moment for 50 years, and they knew exactly what they were doing. As Thex's ship reached the jump point, his communication systems crackled to life with an incoming transmission from Earth. The voice that came through was calm, measured, and spoke perfect galactic standard with no trace of the primitive accent the Empire had expected from humans. "Commander Thex of the Imperial Fleet," the voice began. "This is Earth Defense Command. You are being allowed to leave our system for one purpose only." Thex grabbed his communications console with shaking hands. "What? What do you want from us?" "We want you to carry a message back to your empire," the voice continued. "Tell them what you found here. Tell them that humanity has been watching your expansion across the galaxy for 50 years. Tell them we know the location of every world. You've conquered every military base you've built and every weakness in your defenses." The alien commander felt his blood turn cold. These humans had been studying the Empire for 50 years. That meant they'd been preparing for this encounter. since before his own father was born. Tell them, the voice went on, that Earth was never the helpless prey you thought we were. We've been the hunters all along, waiting patiently for the right moment to reveal ourselves. Your invasion wasn't a conquest attempt, it was a test of our defenses, and you failed completely. Thex's ship began to enter hyperspace, reality bending. Around the damaged hull as it prepared to tear through the fabric of space-time. But even as his vessel started to disappear, the human transmission continued. One final message, Commander. Tell your Empire that their age of expansion is over. The galaxy has new apex predators now, and we've been studying our prey for a very long time. The transmission cut off just as Thex's ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only the fading energy signature of a vessel fleeing in terror. Hyunwoo leaned back in his chair and smiled. The real war was about to begin. As the last traces of Imperial ships disappeared from Earth's sensors, a strange quiet settled over the solar system. The orbital defense platforms that had just demonstrated impossible power began shutting down their weapons systems. Slowly, methodically, humanity's true arsenal started hiding itself once again. Captain Jin Ho watched from Seoul Command as thousands of advanced weapons platforms began their transformation back into harmless-looking space debris. Gravity cannons folded back into configurations that resembled broken satellites. Nanite production facilities disguised themselves as defunct communication arrays. The quantum missile silos sealed themselves and activated holographic projectors that made them appear to be ordinary asteroids. Within hours, Earth's orbital space would look exactly as primitive and defenseless as it had before the Imperial fleet arrived. Any alien civilization that happened to scan the system would see the same thing the Empire had seen, a backward world using chemical rockets and radio waves, completely unaware of the greater galaxy around them. Status report on the masquerade. Protocol, Jin Ho requested. All systems returning to camouflage mode, replied Lieutenant Park, reading from her console. Deep space telescopes are being repositioned to look like primitive optical instruments. Our quantum communication arrays are powering down. Radio transmissions are reverting to the old patterns designed to make us look like we just discovered fire. Jin Ho nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He was remembering a conversation he'd had with his grandfather 20 years ago, back when he was just a young officer, learning about humanity's greatest secret. The hardest part, his grandfather had said, isn't building the weapons or maintaining the deception. It's remembering that we're not the good guys in this story. We're the monsters hiding in the dark, waiting for our prey to come close enough. At the time, Jin Ho hadn't understood what the old man meant. Now, after watching an entire alien fleet get systematically destroyed, he understood perfectly. Earth had detected its first alien civilization in 2019, long before the Galactic Empire. Even knew humans existed. Advanced telescopes had picked up artificial signals from a star system 200 light-years away. Instead of celebrating humanity's first contact with alien intelligence, Earth's leaders had made a chilling decision. They would watch, learn, and prepare. For 6 years, humanity had studied that first alien species without ever revealing their existence. They'd learned the aliens' language, their technology, their weaknesses, and when that species was conquered by the expanding Galactic Empire, Earth scientists had been watching every moment of the invasion. That's when they'd realized the truth about the galaxy. It wasn't a peaceful place filled with wise alien civilizations waiting to welcome humanity into a cosmic community. It was a hunting ground where strong species devoured weak ones, and Earth was definitely not going to be the prey. Sir, Lieutenant, Park interrupted his thoughts. We're receiving reports from our deep cover agents throughout Imperial space. The survivors' ship has made contact with several border worlds. Word is already spreading about what happened here. Jin Ho smiled coldly. Those deep cover agents had been infiltrating alien civilizations for decades, posing as traders, diplomats, and refugees. The Empire thought they were conquering primitive worlds, but many of those worlds had been secretly contacted and armed by Earth long before Imperial forces arrived. How many species do we have under protection now? He asked. 47 civilizations. Across the galaxy, sir. All of them officially conquered by the Empire, but actually serving as our intelligence network. The Galactic Empire had been fighting a war against an enemy they didn't know existed, and they'd been losing for decades without realizing it. Commander Thex's damaged flagship limped into Imperial space 3 weeks after the disaster at Earth, its hull still bearing scars from humanity's devastating weapons. The moment his ship's communication array came online, desperate transmissions began flooding Imperial command frequencies across dozens of star systems. "Emergency alert to all Imperial forces," Thex broadcast, his voice hoarse from exhaustion and terror. "Earth system is not what we believed. Humans possess technology beyond our understanding. Entire invasion fleet destroyed. Request immediate reinforcement of all border worlds." The warnings spread like wildfire through Imperial communication. Networks carried by quantum relays from system to system. Military commanders who had never known defeat suddenly found themselves facing reports of weapons that defied physics and a species they'd dismissed as primitive savages. But every one of those desperate transmissions was being intercepted. Deep, beneath the Gobi Desert, Dr. So-Min stood in Earth's primary quantum intelligence facility, watching as her arrays captured and decoded every Imperial communication in real time. The same technology that had allowed humanity to study alien civilizations for decades was now providing a complete picture of the Empire's response to their defeat. "Ma'am, we've mapped their entire command structure," reported her chief analyst, Commander In-sung. "Fleet positions, supply lines, military codes, defensive installations. They're broadcasting their own vulnerabilities to us every time they try to coordinate a response." So-Min nodded, studying the holographic display that showed Imperial space in perfect detail. Red dots marked military bases, blue lines traced supply routes, and yellow indicators showed the locations of conquered worlds where human agents had been operating in secret for years. "What's the status of Project Exodus?" she asked. "All shipyards report ready for final launch phase," In-sung replied. "The fleet has been waiting in dark space for 15 years. They're just waiting for your authorization." So-Min took a deep breath. For half a century, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Not just the defense of Earth, but the next phase of human expansion into the galaxy. While the Empire had been conquering primitive worlds with brute force, Earth had been building something far more sophisticated. Hidden shipyards in the outer solar system had been constructing humanity's true fleet for decades. Ships that made the Imperial dreadnoughts look like toys. Vessels equipped with technology that could bend space and time, manipulate matter at the quantum level, and project force across interstellar distances. But more importantly, Earth had been recruiting. "Signal our allies," So-Min commanded. "It's time to reveal the truth to the galaxy." Across Imperial space, on dozens of worlds that the Empire believed it had conquered, secret human communication arrays began broadcasting. Species that had been forced into submission years ago suddenly received a message they'd been waiting for. The Liberation Fleet was coming. The Zeltani of Proxima 7, who had pretended to submit while secretly building weapons based on human designs. The Korith of the Vega system, whose supposed slave laborers were actually trained soldiers waiting for the signal. The aquatic Nelim of Tau Ceti, who had been sabotaging Imperial supply lines for a decade while posing as cooperative subjects. All of them had been contacted by Earth long before the Empire arrived. All of them had been armed, trained and prepared for this moment, when humanity would finally reveal itself as the galaxy's new apex predator. As So-Min gave the authorization code, thousands of human ships began emerging from dark space between the stars. The real invasion was about to begin, and this time the Empire would be the prey. The age of human dominance had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.